Oh, you went to Disney World instead of calling in sick. You're not one of us. So we're going to isolate you and keep you way opposite of networking.
And it can be intended as a way to belong. Because again, the water cooler talk or the things, the gossipers who gossip together, that's a way they get together. That's a way they bond. They form a relationship.
Hello, and welcome to the Finding the Unicorn in You podcast. I'm Dr. Jaime G. Raygoza, a life coach, psychologist, and your host. Join me on a journey to inspire and transform ordinary lives into something special. Here, we celebrate the unicorns, those who choose not to follow the ordinary conventional path, but rather chase after their dreams and choose the path less taken, making them truly unique. Together, we'll explore powerful life coaching techniques and hear from special guests who embody the spirit of unicorns in their own way. What are we waiting for? Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today, we have a special unicorn roundup where I have previous unicorns come back and share their expertise. The topic we're going to be talking about is working through workplace gossip. So I will have them introduce themselves, what they do, and share something new that they've learned that has improved their life.
My name's Julie Coraccio, and my business is Reawaken Your Brilliance, and I help people declutter their lives. A lot of times when people think of clutter, they just think of the physical stuff, and so I want people to expand their thinking. And my definition is clutter is anything that prevents you from creating the life you choose, deserve, and desire. And the most recent thing I'm going to go with today. I was at the doctor's, and I've gotten healthy, and I've done really well. And the doctor said to me, he said, you're in menopause. So you've lost weight. It's not where you want to be, but it's really hard. So you need to pat yourself on the back. And what that reminded me was, I'm not a doctor. We got our friend Dr. Google there, but it does no substitute for an actual doctor. So I wouldn't go to an accountant to get a painting. And so that's just a reminder, go to the people with the right skill sets. And if I need support, to ask for support and to go to the right person. So that's my little thought on what I learned today.
Hi, I'm Sara Deacon. I'm the adulting coach. I help motivated young adults figure out their own path to successful independence so that they can go out and change the world and just level up their lives and find success on their own terms instead of living for somebody else. So something I've learned recently was how to put it, that sometimes doing a streak of something is actually feeding into perfectionism, where we feel like if we break the streak, then we might as well not even bother anymore because we can't be perfect at it. And so it has invited me to take a look at some of the apps that I use and how they measure app usage and the habits that I'm trying to track and be more effective at implementing in my daily life, and forgiving myself when I have to start my streak over.
Hi, my name is Richard Blank, and I am the proud CEO of Costa Rica's call center. We're a bilingual nearshore dedicated call center that deals with any sort of outbound support, inbound customer support. And once again, I'm just living in paradise. It's been a wonderful couple decades. I learned this business and I'm just trying to pay it forward. But what I've learned lately, and I've known this the whole time I'm here, is that there are a lot of potholes in Costa Rica. Mhm. And so my car hit one the other day. And I also learned a second lesson that a lot of people have better equipment and tools in their car than I do. And it was almost like NASCAR. People were jumping out of their cars, coming from the bus stop, doing whatever they could to either try to fix the car better, upgrade the equipment. My jack was small. I was living in the cars. It was a community thing. And I'm a guest in this country. It's not like I couldn't do it myself. It was their pleasure. So a lot of handshakes were made. People then said goodbye and did their night. But for a good 15 minutes, I was a part of this crew on a corner when it was late. I needed to get somewhere. And I felt that there was a lot of good people out there. And you just got to find them. And unfortunately, you might need to hit a pothole or two to find them.
Amazing. Thank you all for coming back. I really am excited to have this conversation. And for listeners, I don't think I need an introduction, but I'll introduce myself again anyways. I'm Dr. Jaime G. Raygoza, and I am a life coach and psychologist in human and organizational psychology. And I focus on helping people de-stress and balance their work and life a little bit more through time management, through different mindsets and learning the things that we learn on this podcast. So one of the things that I've come across a lot in the clients that I've been working with has been how to manage workplace gossip. It can be a very negative thing that impacts us, especially if we're the ones that are being targeted by it. My first question for my expert unicorns here would be, if you are being a target of workplace gossip, what are some things you can do to help you get through it?
The first thing that I would say is that you have to remember what other people do is about them and how you respond is about you. So maybe they're jealous of something that you're doing in the workplace. Maybe they are misplacing their anger. And sometimes gossip is a way for people to bond. That doesn't mean that it's correct, but hanging around the water cooler. So I would say the first thing, because when I'm able to remember, you know what, this isn't about me, and take a step back, that kind of gets me grounded. That kind of reminds me, like, okay, this really doesn't have anything to do with you. But if it's bringing up something, this is a wound that can be healed if I can look at it that way. My first thing is to think about that. When all else fails, I say take a deep breath and then be clear-headed, because if we cannot have a knee-jerk reaction and not retaliate by gossiping or by getting angry or something, because that's not going to help you at work. And then you think about, what's my next plan of action? Do I talk to HR? Is there confident? How do I feel with my boss? How do I feel with other coworkers? Right off the bats, that's where I'd begin.
That's great, Julie, is that self-awareness piece. Is this something I need to address? Is this something I can let go? What is the impact on my performance at work? And asking yourself all those questions. So where is it coming from? How is it affecting me? How is it affecting my performance? Is it going to impact something related to me doing my job effectively? And those are all sort of those first internal evaluation questions. And then from there, you get to choose how you approach the person who's spreading the gossip and what part you play in contributing to it and why it's there in the first place. And you get to make the shift and either detach yourself from it and say, yep, it's more about them than it is about me. And also do damage control, because sometimes things people say about you are believed and that can definitely impact performance at work. So the main thing, and I do talk about drama in the home, drama in the workplace. So when I heard this topic about gossip, I'm like, oh, drama, I love it, is we can't always avoid it, but what can we do to get out of it sooner and to make sure that it doesn't blow up or escalate beyond where it's reasonably needs to be? Keep it in its place. And if that means actually getting curious and going to the person spreading the gossip and saying, hey, I've heard this, that you're saying something. Are you saying that? What are you actually saying? And not, again, letting anger take over or starting to create your own story in your head that may or may not be true, but really going to the source and saying, I'm noticing this is happening. What's up with that? Can you tell me more? Is there something that you want to see me change? Or are you okay? Sometimes that "are you okay" question can really allow them to be like, oh, maybe this is about me. So, yeah, that's something I see too.
My fellow guests have such a balance. Character during chaos is the most important thing. Let me look how I would handle a certain situation. First, I would gauge, do I respect the person's opinion? If it is a person that is producing the most in my call center and he's saying behind my back, hey, I think Richie could do more. That's my main man. Of course, he should be talking about me. He's calling me out on it. But then if I got Billy on the side that says Richie's number one, maybe he was cutting corners, he was kissing the bosses. That's not fair either. And I don't appreciate that sort of stuff. And I'll call him out on that too. So it depends on who's saying it. And also it depends on the time. If you do not have a lot of time and you have to do a knee-jerk reaction, try to breathe. But if you have luxury of time, you sleep on it. There's a very good chance you'll decompress, you'll cut out the fat, you'll prioritize, you'll adjust your tone. You know you've overextended, you might even apologize. So you're just not throwing stones and breaking glass. And that's the most important thing for me. I also find it a compliment that someone's even giving me attention, good or bad. And I like me, and I have a circle of friends, and there's the sort of thing where I don't need to prove anything to anybody unless I'm breaking some sort of ethics code. But if I'm just doing my groove, and excuse me for smiling on a Monday or opening doors for people, or following up with people, or maybe showing up on time and coming through with your word. I got promoted for that. You can't blame me on that. It's on you. And so a lot of the times, and ladies, what you were mentioning, it's a deflection and they're talking about themselves. And if you want to cut me down, then call me out. But unfortunately, in my business, we have metrics. So if I'm making 44 sales and you're making 12, what's up, Billy? What's going on? And so I like things like that. I like people with vigor and courage, and I like people with self expression. And I think it's beautiful in our industry that people can't see us because we're very handsome, but we do have nice smiles. And it's taken away from so many mediums are taken away from us in so many senses. So we need to expand on others. So I call people out if they don't use names or military alphabet so things don't bounce back, or doing due diligence before making a phone call so I can learn about you from your LinkedIn profile or your website, or just remembering names so you can thank everybody. And if you can jump clouds and have these sort of soft skills, then really you've created a company culture where there is no harm. You filtered it naturally. And that's just my own experience as a business owner, because I did have the leverage to hire and fire. But why would you want to fire? You have preventative measures and checkpoints prior to that explosion. Really? You should never have to get to that stage. And so I think that those are the sort of things that assisted me over this time.
From my own experience, what I've noticed is that what people are gossiping about, that's more of a coping mechanism for them. It's a bigger problem than just like for the person that's actually creating the gossip. It's never as superficial as, oh, I just hate this person because they exist. A lot of the times it could be insecurities, or they grew up maybe not having enough attention from authority figures. So they want to get that attention so that they feel that sense of love, or they want they envy that person because they want to be that person. So they try to suppress them, doing that crab effect that if I can't be at the certain level, I'm going to pull you down the bucket with me. So it could be a lot of insecurities that need to be addressed for that person. So having that said, what are some things if you catch yourself spreading gossip, either intentionally or unintentionally? What are some things you can do internally to stop yourself from doing that and still be part of the conversation, still be part of the network that you're trying to be part of?
I was going to jump in. I think as I'm listening to all of you talk on this topic, the creating of a definition of gossip, I think, is really important at the start. Is what does gossip look like, sound like, feel like? And that way I know I can identify it when I find myself in it. And from my perspective, it's if somebody's saying something, venting, expressing some sort of story, telling a story about something, and it is obviously weighing on their mind and heavy in their body. Is it me they're coming to because I can solve their problem, or they have a problem with me? Or are they coming to me to feel better about themselves? And the person they really have an issue with, they're actually not speaking to, when whatever's going on could be resolved by a quick conversation with the person directly. If somebody's coming to me and I'm not the direct person that can address their issue, that's gossip. If I'm going to somebody else to get that validation, like you were talking about, Richard, that hug, that acknowledgement, that visibility, what am I really looking for? And that's something I've had a lot of practice over the years, addressing drama and navigating it within myself. Is what am I getting out of this interaction? And what do I really want? Do I want to solve the problem? Or do I want to look like I am the one that's a victim in this situation? Do I want to make somebody else look bad, so to speak? That's where I can start to reflect on what's my motivation in this interaction for taking this issue to a person who's not involved. What am I doing there? And again, that's awareness. We don't always realize it in the moment. So sometimes we got to debrief and be like, That didn't go the way I thought it would. And maybe I need to ask myself different questions next time or go back and redo the conversation.
I was moved for a second there. I was just thinking of Sarah making this decision with the devil and the angel. What do I do? What do I do? If I'm your friend and I know you well and I had 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 Sarah experiences, I know the play. But if I've only met you one time and you're standing up for something or holding back from something, your best friend and family understands that. That person that's there that one time maybe might not understand why you're making that decision. But I want you to be bold and brave. I always like to think Mr. T said he always liked to do things when the cameras are off, of course. And even when the cameras are on, I love the guy. But I want bold and brave. And I always want for myself to look at my own eyes in the mirror at the end of the day and realize that I did stand up to a bully or spider web. I got someone out of it. Because I've had people, Jerry Maguire, my office, where they were the greatest kid on Monday, but by Wednesday, something happened outside of the office, losing control, F-bombing. We're like, come here, calm down. It was too late. They just quit. And you go, what happened to this fading flower? And so then I have that regret that did I miss the sign? And so they come to you because they don't necessarily want you to solve it, but it's a trust factor. It's like a dog that doesn't bite after they sniff. It's a very nice thing. It's a compliment. And if you're the wise one, or the positive energy, or the positive wave, or the light, or the whatever, the security, I think that's fantastic. It depends. I'm not going to fall on a sword for somebody either. You got to be kidding me. And I'm going to choose my battles wisely. And if you put me in a position where you're compromising my ethics, values, and morals, then that's not cool. Then maybe you had a couple minutes to think about the value of our relationship and it was worth some sort of money or some sort of thing that you had to do. And that just makes me sad. I get disappointed sometimes instead of angry because angry is just not a good energy. And that's just my thought. But you, Sarah, you give your advice to everybody that comes to you. I think it's amazing advice.
I would just say, piggybacking first on Sarah, look within. What need am I trying to fulfill? And it might be that I need to create a boundary and I'm gossiping, and that's my way of trying to get around creating boundary. And I love what Richard said about being direct. I think women tend to be indirect, and that drives me insane. But we aren't taught skills. So the other thing I would look at if I'm gossiping, what skill do I need to learn? Maybe I need to learn better boundaries. Maybe I need to learn how to have a difficult conversation, right? And that the more we sharpen these skills, then it allows us to deal with it.
May I make a really quick suggestion? 2 ears, one mouth. They say it all the time. There's a chance they might solve the problem or tell you instead of going here, you should go there. And so I know I might speak a lot, but I also like to keep my mouth shut and I can just be the rudder of your ship. It's help.
Yeah, definitely. Listen to it, but don't keep spreading it.
Mhm.
And I liked what Sarah said too. And I think Richard, you touched on this as well. A lot of it can be scared of confrontation. That can mean insecurity of you. Maybe you've confronted issues in the past and it didn't go the way that you wanted to because of a lack of skills, a lack of communication, or the other person was just not receptive to your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions at the time and invalidated you. So now you're scared to approach a person when you're hurt, you're feeling bad about something. So we really have to do that internal process. Why am I talking to somebody else about it instead of going to the root of the problem and really asking yourself, what is going to be the consequence of me beating around the bush? Is it going to help or is it going to hurt the problem? And the problem here is where the person is compassionate, like they feel sympathy for you because you're going through this problem and you're expressing, and then that person's frustrated, so they want to let out that frustration with someone else, and then that person feels sympathy for the same person, so they spreads. And the problem is this game of telephone that the original message is not the ending message. And I'll give you a perfect example. There was a situation in my previous employer where we had a person call out sick. And this person just was having a bad day. They took a mental health day. one person saw that in their social media account that they went to Disneyland the week prior, but they didn't check the date. So they assumed that person called off to go to Disneyland. So the rumor spread that person played hooky, went to Disneyland, and it started spreading around the office because a lot of people had to pick up that individual's workload. And it was just this whole chaotic mess that when the person came back, they were just attacked by every single employee when it was a legitimate reason. That person was just ill. So take things at face value and only spread things. I would say not even spread things like what Richard said, 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen to it, take it as your own, do your own research and validate is that facts or is that something that was made up?
Or even, is this something that's important for me to know? What do I need to know why the person was not there at work? If they needed a mental health day, if they did play hooky and go to Disneyland, what does it mean to me? Somebody is off work. The work still needs to be getting done. So what does it matter? It doesn't change the outcome whether I know they went to Disneyland or not. It doesn't change what I need to do and how I need to show up. So that's the thing about gossip is when people find out I'm a coach, I usually get a lot of details about their life. I don't know if Richard and Julie and Jaime, you get this too, but they find out you're a coach and they want to tell, on this detail. And it's a lot of just really minutia details. And it doesn't really say much about what's actually happening with them, but they feel like they need to add all the details so that I perceive them in the way they want to be perceived. So I think that goes along with gossip in that way where like they feel like they need to add all the details so that you get the right picture, whatever that means. And I find my conversations, even outside of with my clients and in coaching situations, my conversations are so much more rich and inspired when we just leave out the BS detail. What is it? What are you doing that lights you up? What are you feeling about that thing? It doesn't really matter who's involved, who's not involved, what they're doing or what they ate for breakfast or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Details are fun and they do add richness to certain stories, but a lot of times, and especially in gossip, if you're getting into a lot of the details and picking apart all the things, that's a sign. That's a signal. Do I really need to know all this?
Gossip can also serve as a distraction because if I'm gossiping about all of you, then I don't have to look at myself. I don't have to deal with something. It can just like social media can be, right? I can scroll and spend hours on Facebook instead of working on making myself be a better person. It's interesting. They've done studies. Gossip also decreases your productivity.
Julie's so right about productivity. We're always counting those minutes here, but it's a good point. With me, let me look at one positive thing maybe about gossip. Maybe I did find out something that someone's going to have a child, right? Or maybe they're going to get married, or there's certain things that they're doing outside the office if they're involved with theater or athletics that you can maybe cheer them on. Or I like to find anchors with people. It's very difficult unless they disclose. And so when people are filling out resumes, they're really not giving me anything, just bells and whistles and everything shiny. So I tell you to turn the paper over and give me a coming of age moment. I want to gauge your grammar vocabulary, but can you give me a time you beat up a bully or saved a kitten? Why? Because Jaime, Sarah, and Julie might ask you a zig and a zag question just so you're real. So you can put your script down and maybe connect for a second.
But
And
I think that's different than gossip, though. Gossip is something where the intention is different. It's not like the intention might be to connect, but it's more to, I don't know, tear somebody down or make a thing of not really a thing that needs to be a thing. So,
well, that's an excellent point.
right, to connect and to learn about each other, definitely very important, but I wouldn't classify that as gossip. Yes, there might be stories or there might be elements of that connection in the gossip. And then I think, Richard, what you're saying, like finding those connection points, if someone is spreading gossip and they're talking about their basketball team or whatever sport they're doing, you can diffuse the gossip by latching onto those connection points and say, oh, you play basketball? That's cool. Let's learn more about you in that space instead of focusing on whatever they're trying to tell the story about someone else or tear something else down. So I think that's a really interesting point to make, that there's a there is a time for connection in that. And it can be a way to diffuse the drama of gossip in the moment too.
Soft skills and transitional sentences, Joel mentioning earlier, having those sort of things, those need to be practiced. I never tell someone I'll help them, I'll assist, guide, or lend a hand. Never excuse me, it's for my clarification. Readjustments of tones to reduce any sort of ego defense, because you know that thing in public goes crazy. It's a firecracker. And it's beautiful. There are dances to this, and let someone put their massive energy there when I just go here. And yes, it's you're stopping the fall. You're grabbing onto a rock. Yes, you found something. And if that's what it is, the spark to grow the inferno, you won. That's the game. And listen, I get a ton of gossip about me. Let's be realistic. Not everybody loves me, but the ones that have left here couldn't look in my eye. Why? Because they're smoking weed at lunch, not showing up to work, not making their calls, a cancer, a jumper. Why would you want someone like that here? But it's my fault. Okay, cool. Whatever. I'm following the labor laws. I'm also a guest here and I might have a slight accent with my Spanish, but what are you going to do? I'm not perfect, but I tell you what, if I can look in my eyes and know that I did my day with honorable intentions, I'll take all the gossip you want to put about me. My conditions will never be as good as they want them to be. I'll never pay them as much as they want me to pay them. They want to work less hours, better schedule, the shebangage is. Sometimes I can't do it. So the gossip begins, especially around Christmas time with aguinaldo and bonuses and stuff. But what do? You take it. Why? Because I signed up for it. And if people want to grow in companies or make friends with Sarah and Julie and Jaime, they're going to be gossiped about. Why? Because they walked across a dance floor and asked someone to dance, or they were friendly at a party, or they followed through and asking for phone numbers and became friends. And so sometimes you got to get through that. And sometimes you got to roll at this alone because there's naysayers and great believers in gossip. Whatever. As long as Sarah, Julie, and Jaime like me, I'm having a great day today. You can gossip all you want. And I think once they can let go of that weight, and you were mentioning it earlier, they can rise. And that's all. So yeah, gossip all you want. I'll take it.
I was actually curious about this topic because, like I said, it's come in my personal life and also a lot of my clients that I've been working with. So I actually looked up at the origins of gossip, which is usually storytelling. And why did we start storytelling? It was a survival instinct. So back in the cave days where the hunter and gatherer, you would tell stories of this animal is very vicious and it would kill you. So don't go because so-and-so died because they went there. This one person got stung by a scorpion and they died after. So stay away from this. So it used to be a survival instinct where we used to share knowledge to improve our lives. But somewhere around the line of us getting more and more civilized, we used it from a survival instinct to a segregation, more so to hurt than to help. So I think I'm going back with what y'all said earlier. There's a difference between gossiping and then networking. Individuals need to separate those two and look at the networking aspect. If you want to connect, the network, share the positive, embrace the successes, push people up. Don't gossip and then bring them down.
And gossip's also a tool to isolate people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you went to Disney World instead of calling in sick. You're not one of us. So we're going to isolate you and keep you way opposite of networking.
And it can be intended as a way to belong. Because again, the water cooler talk or the things, the gossipers who gossip together, that's a way they get together. That's a way they bond. They form a relationship. And with the young people I work with, they definitely are looking for, where do I belong? What is my role in this space? And how can I fit in? Because going back to what you're saying, Jaime, about the survival instinct is, if we don't belong, then we die. That's ingrained in our physiology. Like we are always looking for where we belong because in the cave days, if you are on your own, you are dead. That's it. But that's not a thing now, but it still carries in that instinct and that fear and that the way we behave sometimes in groups. So if we feel like we need to tear somebody down and make somebody else the outsider so we can belong, then that's where gossip comes from. And that's where we can look more to how can everybody belong? Because if they're isolated, then they're in danger. So how can we make it so that we are networking and lifting each other up and making it a space where we can all belong? And I think something Richard was saying earlier, I think about going to the source and having the courage to stand up and say, this isn't okay. I think that it can be really threatening to stand out in that way. That can feel like a threat if to so-called confront somebody else. So I always love to talk about clarification over confrontation. Yeah, maybe somebody's gossiping about me and maybe I need to confront them, but that feels scary. So let me get curious and see if I can get some clarification around what's really going on. That feels less threatening. Like I can go and I can get clarity instead of go confront somebody because then I might be in danger and I might be isolated and I might not belong anymore. So it all is related to what you're all saying.
Dr. Jaime, you gave us a case study earlier about the individual with the gossip with the Disney. That was 1 week prior. I have two really good questions. What happened to the person that started that gossip? Was they called out? And then what happened to the group of the peanut gallery that was doing that? Did they make it right? Did they apologize or did they say, this person, what happened? What was the conclusion of this Disney thing?
Was actually a manager for that, and I knew why the person went called off sick. And I trust this individual, and I knew that she's not known to just do things like that. And even what Sarah said, if they need a mental health day to rejuvenate, and that's the way that they're going to rejuvenate, then so be it. It's just a day. It's not like they're playing hooky and underperforming. She was one of my like rock stars. She was always performing. Everything was good. And the person who started the gossip was someone that wanted to get eagerly promoted. So they thought that by me bringing this person down that was in line to get promoted, I will then put up. So I had the conversation with the individual and I said, I understand your intention. However, bringing somebody else's value does not bring more value to you. You bring value based on your actions, your behaviors, and your decision-making skills. Think about what you did. Think about the repercussions you caused. I want you to talk to that person, apologize, and see how you can work with that person, maybe have her as a mentor so that you can reach to her level, if not more. It was an awkward conversation. They got along, and now they're both my leads. It's something that actually ended up fixing, but it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes people double down and they're like, no, I was right in what I did, and I'm going to stay that way. Fortunately, ended up being okay, but that's what the closer of that was.
That was great. That's 10 checkpoints ago. Obviously, those people, they grew with your organization. So guess what Dr. Jaime did? He had that black and white conversation with this individual, and you said it the way it needed to be said. And I'm not surprised that the outcome is that they're your two top producers. Of course, they're supposed to be. Families are supposed to fight. It builds foundation so it can weather. It makes it seaworthy. And Sarah, once again, I don't come guns a-blazing. I don't do my Philly attitude with FUs and screaming at people. I'm just like you. I believe in very calm and diplomatic, nice toned vocabulary, and to be very respectful and take a lot of deep breaths. But yes,
Right.
but I also believe you need to be bold in life and you want to love yourself. And there are certain times, as it's not physical, that the toughest thing is mental. And I'm not saying to do it in front of everybody, like after school or in the lunchroom. But you love you and you want to do these things. And as I agree, you would be clarified and prepared and poised and well-versed. And if you did do it in front of people, they'd all go, "Oh," and you'd win the fight. And then you become a legend. And that's what leaders do. They speak for those that can't speak, and they teach them the proper examples of preparation. And I'm very impressed. I love these ideas today. I found out a lot of good stuff.
That's why I love having these type of conversations, especially people from different fields. Even though some of us do overlap a little bit, it's still so unique, and brilliant minds come up with brilliant solutions.
And what's coming to me right now is that in these conversations and what you shared about that office interaction that you guided them through, Jaime, was it's okay to be awkward and have it not go 100% perfectly either, because most of us are trying to be better at whatever it is we're trying to do. So sometimes we have to be bad at it for a little while first, which I feel like that's a lot of the fear around clarifying the drama or the gossip interactions can come from the, I need to approach it, but I'm not going to do it right because I don't know what I'm doing. Building the skills, like you're saying, Richard, is, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. And if it doesn't go perfectly, it can be okay too. Because people usually are receptive to it and they can see if you're struggling and they're, how can I help you figure this out? And they'll work with you. And it actually brings you closer together, even if it doesn't go perfectly. If you don't have the tone you want to, or the poise you want to, or the peace or the breathing that you want to have, you can show that you're working on it. And even as leaders, as managers, as guides, as mentors, showing that we're willing to get a little messy with it to make sure we're doing the right thing or the right next thing, I think is really important to just note in this part of the conversation.
The best advice that I rolled my life with and has helped me tremendously was assume that everyone's doing the best they can based on the knowledge and resources they have at that moment in time. Before I even engage into a conversation, I always like to start, where are you at today on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you at a 5? Or are you at an 8? Are you at a 3? Because if you're at a 3, we're probably not going to have the most productive conversation today. So like what Richard said earlier, go home, sleep on it. Let's come tomorrow fresh with an open mind and let's have a positive conversation. Piggybacking off of Sarah, let's try to discover something new. Let's try to be curious about this conversation and discover something. Because when you have that assumption, your mind's going to change. If somebody cuts you off while you're driving and you're assuming, I don't know what's going on, maybe they have something urgent that they had to go to and they had to do that. Bless you and keep going. Versus that person was so rude. They purposely cut me off. They did this, they did that. They wanted to inconvenience my life. Yeah, I'm not sorry to break your world, but the world does not revolve around you. And that person probably did not want to purposely had in their head, I'm going to cut this person off because I want to ruin their day. No, it's not that. It's not that serious. Everybody's going through their own demons. Everybody's going through their own issues. So just assume they're doing the best they can based on what they have going on that day.
But still keep an open mind. The smartest people are arbitrators. You can't, as a surgeon, operate on your own family members. They don't allow those sort of things. And so if you can remove that emotion, even though it's very difficult, sometimes you will have that lucid clarity. And I've tried to do that. But yeah, give people benefit of the doubt.
All good stuff. Like you said, get neutral. If you can come from a place of neutrality and unemotional, then you'll be able to be in a good headspace to respond, and don't respond from anger.
Now, we are reaching towards the end. So I do want to have one last question for y'all. If you can give one piece of advice regarding this topic on how someone can improve to get beyond the gossip or contribute positive like gossip or positive networking, how can they do so?
I'll finish it out. I always give the advice of not being hard on yourself. Okay. Sisyphus, it's the rock up the hill. What are you going to do? Sometimes it snows, sometimes it rains. What are you going to do? And a wise man once said, regardless of the outcome, your toes are still tapping. And I'd like to die with my boots on. I'd like to enjoy life with a smile. And if I can pay it forward as much as possible, as I say, gossip, it's only words. It's the actions of those that I love and admire that would affect me. But if anybody takes the time to get to know me, the only gossip they're going to say about Richard Blank is going to be positive and fun things. And I'm okay with that. I really am. But how about this? Maybe there is gossip of when I was in 3rd grade and I broke the neighbor's window playing baseball. He's got 1,000% right to talk about me like that. I did it back in the 80s, but I'm a different person now. And so I'm able to shed skin. And it's really a walk that we have to do ourselves. It shouldn't be a forced march. So just do it in a clean way. And if you can do that, you'll have wonderful days. Unfortunately, I found this out at a very young age. That's why I think that's the sort of momentum that got me to where I am today. But I can't thank you enough. I had the best time hanging out with everybody.
There's so much from this conversation that I could pull one bit out or all of it. Go back and listen to the whole thing, take notes. But what it really comes down to for me is the awareness. Where am I and whose business is this? Byron Katie says there's 3 kinds of business. There's your business, there's my business, and there's God's business. And we get into drama, we get into gossip, we get into anxiety, we get into all the yucky stuff when we're out of our own business. So stay in your business and evaluate. Stay open, stay curious. Ask yourself that question, whose business is this? Because if you can't control whatever is going on, then maybe it's not your business. And you can let it go, or you can point the other person in the direction they need to go. So they don't come to you with that stuff, holding the boundary. This isn't my business. Why are you talking about this with me? Or, this isn't their business. This is my business and I need to take care of it. So those are from the gossiper and recipient of gossip perspective. It's whose business is this? Let's bring some awareness to it. And then how do we move from there?
I would just say to try and use gossip as a tool. 1, be like an archaeologist. Someone's gossiping about me. Maybe there's truth about that. Maybe I'm quick to anger and I see it as passion, but other people see it as anger. So maybe that's something I could do a little work on. Or if someone says something about me, in addition to looking at it being as like an archaeologist, is what can I heal? Because if I'm healed and whole, say what you want. It's not going to affect me. But if I hear it and it upsets me, look at that as an opportunity to heal something. So try to do the positive and see it how gossip can be a tool to support you in being the best version of yourself.
Completely love that. Thank you, everyone. This has been a fantastic conversation. I can probably go on for hours, but unfortunately, we have an hour cap. So I do have to close out. But listeners, as always, episodes come out every Friday at 7 a.m. And if you go to the Unicorn Wall of Fame, you'll see these wonderful unicorns on there so you can read more about them. And I'll have a summary of this episode on my page. So feel free to check it out. But any last comments before we close out?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to the Finding the Unicorn in You podcast. I truly appreciate you listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and gained valuable insights. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep growing. Until next time, this is Dr. Jaime G. Raygoza signing off.